You've spent 80 years serving a master who never returned. You failed, you suffered, and just when you think redemption is finally within reach, they accuse you of treason. But here's the real question. How do you repay 100,000 gold debt with your life? Today's story isn't just about alchemy, cultivation, or loyalty. It's about betrayal so deep, it spans decades. If you've ever thought failure was the end, wait until you see what comes next. And before we dive in, tell me, would you serve someone for 80 years if they never once returned? Let me know in the comments. Now let's begin. It's always difficult to die. Each experience is just as challenging as the last. While I could claim the first time was the worst, that wouldn't be true. Many subsequent deaths surpassed it in agony. However, that inaugural death was the only one where I genuinely believed it was the end. That pain was unique. My first life feels incredibly distant now, a mere blur in the mists of time. After that initial demise, I endured countless years of suffering in the lives that followed. Yet, as I found my footing, I also discovered immense joy and wonder in each new world. This cycle of innumerable lives has rendered my first existence so remote, so detached. I've even forgotten my name from that time. It's been swept away by the relentless current of time. I retain only one memory from that first life. I had a sister. Though I can recall nothing else about her, not even her name, I remember how deeply I cared for her. She was my only family in those final moments. Allowing these memories to fade is a problem I haven't yet resolved. Perhaps forgetting makes living easier. My first death was abrupt. My sister had found herself in trouble, and I was rushing to her aid. My haste proved fatal. It may seem strange that I don't recall the specifics of my death, given how many times I've died since. All that remains is the memory of my sister, her peril, and my desperate desire to save her. What came next, however, is seared into my mind. My consciousness drifted in an empty void, a realm of pure nothingness. I couldn't see, or perhaps everything was an infinite black. I felt nothing, for there was nothing to feel. Time passed, but its duration was indiscernible. What is your desire? Though I had no ears, the question reverberated through my being. The voice was authoritative, as if the very fabric of existence should heed its command. This was the entity I would later come to know as the earthly Tao, a being that controlled, not ruled, but controlled, an entire world. My final thoughts echoed in that void. I wanted to live. I wanted to live for my sister. That is compatible. I can grant you a new life. You will have the chance to see her again. You will even have the power to help her in any way she requires, eventually. Do you accept this blessing? Yes. Agreement noted. Sensation flooded me. I was kneeling on packed dirt. A gentle breeze rustled through my hair, and the air carried the clean scent of an early spring countryside. I opened my eyes to a large courtyard filled with dozens of people, all kneeling in neat, tidy rows, their eyes closed in deep meditation. In my shock, I blurted something out and tried to scramble to my feet, only to stumble. At the head of the courtyard, a middle-aged man stood on a small platform, glaring at me. I didn't understand his words, but his "shut the hell up" expression was universally clear. I quickly silenced myself. Unsure of my surroundings or how I came to be there, I resolved to blend in until I could understand the situation. As I awkwardly tried to resume the kneeling posture, others in the courtyard began to open their eyes. Once everyone was awake, the man at the front shouted again. Everyone stood, and I followed suit. The courtyard was enclosed by red-plastered walls nearly 8 meters high. The packed dirt where we had knelt was bordered by large gray bricks. At the front stood the carved, dark wooden platform the shouting man occupied. To its left was a massive red double door, several meters tall, adorned with 7 rows and 7 columns of large brass studs. Our group was herded out of the courtyard onto a wide road paved with the same gray bricks. The same tall red walls lined both sides, allowing movement only forward or back into the courtyard. The man led us through several crossroads, but the towering red walls omnipresently blocked our view. We passed numerous large, studded doors, most of them closed. Only one was ajar, revealing what appeared to be an idyllic garden trapped within the prison-like red walls. A breeze carried the fragrance of fresh flowers, but we quickly moved past it. No sounds escaped these walls. Only the rhythmic shuffle of feet could be heard as we traversed this labyrinth. Our destination was a secluded corner of the complex, an area also enclosed by the familiar high walls. The ground was cobbled with loose-fitting bricks that shifted underfoot. This section housed about 50 tiny wooden shacks crammed into tight rows. At the far end was a large square of sandy soil. The man began speaking, giving directions, but I understood nothing. Eventually, everyone started entering different houses, so I simply followed suit, choosing a random shack. From the outside, it looked like a small hovel of rotten lumber. Inside, it was cramped and filthy. The wooden floors, cracked and broken in many places, were so worn that patches of stone and soil were visible, with weeds sprouting in the corners. The air was thick with a musty odor of mildew. The only item inside was a rolled-up sleeping mat. The room was barely large enough to unroll it completely. Since no one seemed to be leaving their houses, I decided to sit and wait until I heard movement outside, appreciating the brief privacy to think. What the hell is going on? I mumbled to myself. My question went unanswered as I sat alone. My thoughts drifted to the events of the past few hours. Already, memories of my previous life were fleeting. My mind resisted returning to it, preferring to focus on the present. When I did force myself to concentrate on that life, I felt remorse for forgetting, yet my thoughts inevitably drifted away. The concerns and anxieties from before seemed inconsequential now. More prominent in my mind was the voice from the void. I had accepted its blessing. I would only learn its true meaning in time. I waited in my small room for what felt like days, though it was likely less than an hour. In an unfamiliar environment, without knowing why you're there or what to do, your sense of time can become distorted. I decided that simply sitting around wouldn't accomplish anything. I needed to go out and figure things out. I stood up and walked outside. The small residential area was deserted. Everyone was still holed up in their tiny houses. I circled the courtyard, but apart from the rickety wooden shacks, I found only a large, unpaved area of packed sandy soil. What should I do? I asked myself. I could try forcing my way into someone's door, but that seemed ill-advised given my inability to understand the few words I'd heard. Returning to my room and waiting felt too passive. I approached the large gateway we had entered through. Two massive red doors, covered in brass studs, blocked my path. I knew this likely meant we weren't supposed to leave, but what choice did I have? I didn't hesitate. I pulled with all my strength to force them open. They were heavy and unyielding. I put my full weight into the copper ring, serving as a handle, pulling with everything I had. It wasn't much, but the door began to budge. That was all it took. As the doorway cracked open, a man on the other side pushed it fully open. He must have been guarding the passage. He yelled something I didn't understand, and I responded with something he didn't understand. He yelled again, and I yelled back. You get the idea? Soon, he was seeing red. In a fit of rage, he punched me squarely in the chest. I've been punched before and it might hurt, but a punch usually isn't that bad. Or so I thought. This man's punch utterly caved in my chest. The pain was sharp, yet I barely felt it as my mind went blank shortly after the impact. It was only mildly satisfying when, in my final moments, I saw the guard's eyes widen in shock and a hint of fear. He had just killed one of his charges. Good luck explaining that. You have died. Calculating. You died as a Marshall Disciple 1. 10 credits awarded. Total credits, 10. Sensation flooded me once more. I was kneeling on packed dirt. A gentle breeze stirred my hair, and the air smelled clean, like an early spring countryside. I opened my eyes to see a courtyard full of people, all kneeling in neat, tidy rows. It was exactly the same. In my shock, I shouted something and tried to bolt to my feet, but stumbled. At the head of the courtyard, the exact same middle-aged man stood on a small platform, glaring at me. I didn't understand his words, but again his "shut the hell up" face required no translation. This identical scene had unfolded mere hours ago, so one would think it wouldn't be so surprising. I was beginning to worry. I was fairly certain I'd died twice in less than a day, under the intimidating gaze of the bastard in front of us, and fearing he would swiftly cause a third death, I decided to keep quiet. Everything played out precisely as it had last time. We stood up, walked for a while, then entered our tiny houses. This time, I decided against a quick walk. I sat there, trying to formulate a plan. That's when I heard the familiar, semi-robotic voice again. System initialization complete. Welcome to the undying immortal system. 10 credits available. If you wish to make a purchase, simply say system. What? Who are you? I asked quickly. I received no response. I waited, but still heard nothing. I decided to try for more information. What is the undying immortal system? I asked. No response. What are credits? No response. System, I would like to make a purchase. I finally tried. What would you like to purchase? What is available? Would you like to purchase basic information about the products available for purchase? The cost is 1 credit. That, at least, told me something. I could buy information. The fact that I had to buy information about what I could buy wasn't exactly thrilling. Yes, I want to buy that. Purchase confirmed. 9 credits remaining. The system can be used to purchase anything. You can learn new skills, change your body, acquire items of powerful magic, or anything else. Everything you purchase will come with an associated cost. The greater its effect on the world, the more expensive it will be. Credits are the most basic form of system currency, and their use is limited to things that affect the mortal world. System, I would like to spend credits. I want to be sent back home. Processing, your current balance is too low to begin calculating the cost of teleportation back to your home world at this time. Okay, I needed more credits, but at least it was a future possibility. So what did I need? System, I want to understand the languages of this world. The cost of learning all languages extant in the 9 Rivers continent is not possible to calculate at this time. Okay, what about just learning the local language? The cost of learning the Westerhan language is 100 credits. That wasn't good. How could I get the credits I needed? I began before being cut off. Processing. An external entity has discounted the price of learning the language. Cost 1 credit. Buy it, I said without much thought. Purchase confirmed. 8 credits remaining. Knowledge slammed into me, leaving me slightly woozy. Yet, even in my daze, I inherently understood an entirely new language. It felt as if I'd been born knowing it. Thinking in this new language felt almost more natural than thinking in the one I'd spoken my entire life. After regaining my senses, I returned to a crucial point. System, what did you mean about an external entity? The cost of that information is not possible to calculate at this time. Why did I receive a discount? The cost of that information is not possible to calculate at this time. I felt like I was hitting my head against a rock. I decided to try something else. System, how do I earn more credits? The cost to learn basic information about how to earn more credits is 1 credit. Okay, purchase it. Purchase confirmed. 7 credits remaining. You will be rewarded credits upon your death. The number of credits received will reflect your cultivation level at the time of your death. The higher your cultivation, the more credits you will receive. System warning. Quick, repeated, intentional deaths may result in administrative action. That warning didn't sound good. I didn't want to die in the first place. I had already done that twice, and even if the second time was quick, it wasn't an enjoyable experience. Deciding not to dwell on thoughts of death, I put any further questions for the system aside for the time being. I needed to understand what was happening around me. I stood up and confidently walked out of my tiny one-room house. I wanted to respond, but before I could, he rushed toward me and punched me directly in the chest. Just like with the guard, my sternum broke and my ribs snapped. Something must have punctured a lung because I couldn't breathe, and I began coughing up blood. When the guard had killed me before, he was at least powerful enough to end me quickly. This time, I wasn't so lucky. My body collapsed to the ground. I tasted only copper. I felt only pain. In front of me, all I could see was a pair of embossed leather boots. I managed to turn my head and look up at the face of my killer. This boy showed no sign of the surprise and worry the guard had. His face held only a malicious smirk. You have died. Calculating. You died as a martial disciple one. 10 credits awarded. Total credits, 17. Sensations surged through me again, but this time, I was prepared. No screams escaped my lips, no uncontrolled fall, no involuntary movements. Having died 3 times now, my mind had a strange, almost detached clarity. I remained uncomfortable in the kneeling posture, yet I held it steady. It's much easier to maintain the correct position when you start there. Rise, the middle-aged man barked. I, along with everyone else, stood. Blending into the crowd felt much easier this time. Follow. We retraced the familiar path back to our houses. Now that I understood their language, I hoped to eavesdrop on conversations, to grasp what was truly happening. But there was only silence. I hadn't noticed this on my previous 2 trips. The walk was short, and we quickly arrived at the residential area where that man gave his speech. Your chi has awakened, and you have all received your blessing from the heavenly Tao. Find a house and meditate on the nature of your blessing. In 2 hours, we will begin taking you to be tested. Do not cause any trouble during this time. That last sentence seemed aimed squarely at a small group of young men. Standing at their center was the red-robed youth who had just killed me. I entered my small house and sat down to think. I had 2 hours. In 2 hours, someone would take me to be tested. I wasn't sure what that entailed, but I could guess they wouldn't appreciate knowing about the system I now had access to, or the fact that every death sent me back to the beginning. The quick succession of my 2 deaths told me this place was dangerous. So, I resolved to keep my cards close. No need to share information they didn't need to know. Understanding the blessing. The word blessing was the same one the voice in the void had used, indicating that my blessing was the system and the ability to reincarnate. I certainly wouldn't be sharing that. I needed an alternative explanation ready. I didn't know what a typical blessing entailed, nor how to convincingly fake one. Fortunately, the system offered a solution. System, I want to know about blessings from the heavenly Tao. The cost of information about the heavenly Tao and its blessings is not possible to calculate at this time. All right, that avenue was closed. How about system? I want to know common knowledge and beliefs about blessings from the heavenly Tao. Things everyone knows or thinks they know about the topic. Information on beliefs regarding blessings from the heavenly Tao. Cost 5 credits. This implied there was vital, hidden information, something to keep in mind, but not actionable now. Purchase. Confirmed. 12 credits remaining. It is commonly believed that a blessing of the heavenly Tao can be nearly anything. Blessings enhance the blessed in some fashion. A weak blessing may allow the blessed to know how much to water a plant. A strong social blessing may allow the blessed to charm everyone they meet. The most prized blessings typically enhance a person's martial prowess. An example would be gaining the ability to create a tiger out of fire that would fight alongside the blessed. However, such blessings are rare and are only obtained by the truly virtuous. Credits expended. Transaction complete. With that settled, I still had some credits burning a hole in my pocket. If not for a blessing, what did I need? Knowledge, I decided. Knowledge about this godforsaken place where I could be killed on a whim. Why was I being killed so casually? System, I want to know about this body. Who am I? Where did I come from? Just give me the basic information. Information regarding the identity and history of the host's body. Cost 1 credit. At least it was still cheap. Purchase. Confirmed. 11 credits remaining. The former occupant of the body was named Su Fong. He was born into the Sioux clan of the western wastes of the Nine Rivers continent. The Sioux clan is the sole ruler of the entirety of the western wastes, and they are currently unchallenged in their dominion. Su Fong was an orphan born into a remote branch family of the clan. He was barely considered a member of the clan, and his identity as a member provided no benefits. If you were to become powerful, or even have the possibility of a bright future ahead of him, that would all change. The clan always welcomes someone of their blood who has potential, no matter how distantly related they are. The second problem for Su Fong was that his body was in terrible condition. His genetics did him no favors, giving him a somewhat small and frail body naturally, but that was compounded by malnutrition and illness. No one had any hopes for his future. When he turned 16, he was brought to the Sioux clan training compound along with every other child of the clan his age. It has a training center where the Sioux clan awakens their children's chi and teaches them how to use it. This allows a select few to gain great power and become the future pillars of the clan. Every clan member, no matter how distantly related, is required to attend. The clan does not want to miss out on a future prodigy. During the awakening ceremony, clan elder Su Yuan Fei sent sparks of chi into the bodies of all the participants to try to assist in empowering the blessing. Su Feng's body, being frail and ill, could not handle this process and collapsed. At the moment of his death, he was blessed. His final wish was to die so that another may live. Credits expended. Transaction complete. And so that was it. That's how I ended up in his place. A depressing story, and now I had to figure out how to pick up the pieces of his broken life. I've been dying from a single punch from those arrogant jerks. I knew that couldn't be normal. Well, I just learned about this body being rather frail and disease-prone was likely the cause. From the information I'd received, the clearest path forward was to make the Sioux clan value me. They were the undisputed rulers of this entire region. It sounded like they could cultivate their children into prominent members of society. However, the Sioux clan would only value me if I appeared to be a prodigy in their eyes. With this body, that was never going to happen. System, I want something that will heal my body so that I am at least average among my peers. Would you like to purchase a rank 1 healing pill? The cost is 10 credits. It looked like I would only be able to buy one thing. A minor healing pill, was that what I really needed? I asked for something to heal my body, but was that enough? Could I make it stronger? System, I would like to buy something that can both heal my body and make it stronger, giving me strength equal to or greater than others my own age. Would you like to purchase a rank 1 strengthening pill? The cost is 25 credits. That was a bust. To get one strengthening pill, I need to die 3 more times. I could always try that in the future. Buy the rank 1 healing pill. Purchase confirmed. Item deposited in storage. 1 credit remaining. I sat there, but no pill appeared. Where's my pill? No response. System, give me my damn pill. No response. System, how much for information about the location of my pill? Would you like to purchase basic information about the system storage space? Cost 1 credit. No, damn it. I could figure this out on my own. A storage space, a place that stores items purchased from the system. It wouldn't be a physical location. That made no sense. So, it had to be something like an inventory in a video game. How did you open it? And how did you take things out? Inventory, I said. Nothing happened. System inventory. Nothing. System storage. No. Maybe it wasn't voice command. Maybe I just willed it to happen. I focused my mind on wanting to take a pill out of storage. I tried to visualize a pill moving from somewhere and appearing in my hand. A small, round pill appeared in my hand. I was pleasantly surprised when it worked. Instead of immediately swallowing it, I tried to put the pill back into storage, but nothing I did had any effect, which meant the storage was probably only one way. Here's to you, Su Feng, I said, tossing the pill into my mouth. Energy surged through my body. Bones that were slightly out of place snapped back into alignment. Micro cracks I would have never noticed vanished instantly. The many lingering problems caused by malnutrition slowly disappeared. I felt like I had been reborn again. The constant low-level pain I had barely noticed had vanished. Maybe I would still die from a single punch. I had no idea, but I definitely felt like I had more of a future now. As I waited in my small house, I began doing a few basic exercises. There was barely any room to move, but I still wanted to adapt to my new body as best I could. Basic sit-ups and push-ups gave me a sense of my current strength. It still wasn't high, but I was at least able to complete a dozen push-ups before my arms gave out. I performed a little shadow boxing to help with my muscle coordination. We had been told someone would come to take us for testing after 2 hours. The testing may have started then, but I was clearly not high on the priority list. After nearly 4 hours, someone finally came and opened my door. "Follow me," he said in a neutral voice. I exited my room. Time to see what future awaited me on this Nine Rivers continent. The guard led me from the residential area into a smaller side courtyard near its entrance. This space, though more confined, echoed the familiar gray brick and red wall aesthetic. It housed a single, rather official-looking building. It was a wooden structure painted a vibrant red, perched half a meter above the ground on a thick, marble foundation. Red columns lined its perimeter, supporting a two-tiered yellow ceramic tile roof. Intricate gold designs adorned the red walls, while complex, multicolored patterns decorated the eaves and the brackets nestled between the columns. I was guided up a few marble steps and into the building, where a small front room greeted me. Su Yuan Fei, the middle-aged man from the earlier ceremony, sat at the back, overseeing the proceedings. In the center of the room, a clear orb rested on a pedestal. To the right, a scribe diligently took notes at a table. Finally, behind the orb, stood an elderly man I hadn't seen before. Uncertain of the proper etiquette, I offered the elderly man a slight bow and approached. I decided against speaking, as silence often proves the safest course in unfamiliar surroundings. If they deemed my actions rude, I would simply die and try again. Fortunately, it didn't come to that. As I neared, the elderly man spoke. "What is your name?" he inquired. "Su Fong." I heard the scribe transcribe my name. "Place your hand on the orb and channel your chi into it." Not entirely sure what that meant, I did my best. I placed my hand on the orb and tried to will something into it. Nothing happened. After a few moments, the man spoke again. "Concentrate on your dantian in the core of your body. Pull from there and push into the orb." I followed his instruction. I didn't feel much, but a faint trickle of energy flowed from me into the orb. As it did, the orb weakly sputtered, emitting a faint, mixed-color glow. "Zero elemental affinity," the elderly man stated. The scribe noted it down. "What can you tell us about the blessing you have received?" Having anticipated this question, I decided on an answer that would hopefully imply more to come. I felt anything would be better than admitting I learned nothing. My entire life, my body has been weak and frail. After the blessing, I can feel a new strength within me. Old pains have vanished, and I feel I am regaining the strength I should possess. I believe there may be more to this blessing, but that is all I know right now. The old man scrutinized me, and I felt a gentle probe of energy pass over my body. After a moment, he nodded to the scribe. He will be given the Earth Heart mantra and return to his original quarters. Then, he looked back at me and spoke with a disinterested tone. "The new disciple tournament will be held in 3 months. If you do not place in the top 16, you will be expelled from the clan. Leave." I wanted to speak and ask a question, but the guard who had led me in began pulling me away. After a second of surprise, I followed. We entered a side room where another scribe sat before several piles of bamboo scrolls. "Earth Heart," the guard said with a touch of disdain. The scribe handed me a scroll from the largest pile. "We will send someone to retrieve this in 2 weeks. You have that long to learn it. Do not lose or damage this scroll." I nodded and was pulled away by the guard. He took me back to the residential area, but didn't follow me to my house. He probably went to retrieve the next person in line. Sitting back in my house, I needed to strategize. Being expelled from the clan for not placing in the top 16 sounded harsh, but it made a certain amount of sense. The Sioux clan was vast, and I was an orphan from a distant branch family. At some point, they would need to prune those considered actual family members. It might not feel fair, but it was logical. My recent encounters highlighted gaps in my knowledge. As long as I was aware of a problem, I could address it. My zero elemental affinity seemed to be one such problem. I didn't know what affinities were or how they would help me, but the testing indicated their importance. With only 1 credit, my options were limited. At most, I could use it to fill a small knowledge gap. System, I want knowledge of affinities. You can only afford common knowledge of what people believe about affinities. The cost is 1 credit. Purchase. Purchase confirmed. 0 credits remaining. In this world, there are many forms of energy. The most common form of energy is chi. It exists everywhere in the air around you. Similar to light or electricity, Qi is a form of pure energy. There are many different forms of qi. Using light as an analogy, there are many different wavelengths of qi that give it different colors. Examples of this are the 5 basic elements: fire, water, earth, metal, and wood qi. Other forms of qi include lightning, demonic, and spirit qi. Affinity allows a cultivator to control the type of qi that matches their affinity. They can then pull that energy into themselves, empowering and strengthening their body. While rarer affinities may offer some benefits, they are generally seen as less useful, as their matching qi type may be lacking or insufficient in the environment. Credits expended. Transaction complete. System: I want to improve my earth qi affinity. Temporary low 9-star earth affinity. Cost: 10 credits. Fair enough. System: I would like to improve my earth qi affinity by 2 steps. Temporary mid 9-star earth affinity. Cost: 35 credits. With a little more probing, I discovered affinities started at low 9-star and progressed through low, mid, high, and peak levels. Then, they advanced to low 8-star. Presumably, they would continue up to at least peak 1-star, though I couldn't confirm if that was the highest. Crucially, each increase in affinity became more expensive. Reaching just low 8-star would cost 260 credits, a 100 credit increase over the 160 needed for peak 9-star. I considered this. Did I need to commit suicide dozens of times to acquire a usable affinity? I certainly didn't want to do that. Memories of my last death lingered. Also, I was sure repeatedly committing suicide was exactly what the system meant by its warning against quick, repeated, intentional deaths. So, I needed to find ways to quickly improve my cultivation, thereby increasing my credit gain. Affinity was key, so I would start there. Improving to low 9-star was cheap, something I could afford after a single death, at any time. Wait. System: I want to improve my earth qi affinity such that it stays improved after every restart. Permanent low 9-star earth affinity. Cost: 100 credits. There it was. 10 deaths just to afford even the lowest permanent affinity if I didn't want to rebuy it every time I died. Processing. An external entity has discounted the price of increasing your affinity. Cost: 10 credits. Note: this discount will only be applied to the first affinity you permanently upgrade. However, future upgrades to this affinity will also be discounted to 10% of their regular price. Only the first affinity. Did I want to commit to earth qi? This wasn't a decision I could rush. I was sure I could spend even more credits to make an affinity permanent later, but it was better to try and choose the right path from the beginning. Besides, I didn't even have the credits for this now, so it would have to wait. My goal moving forward would be simple. Push as far as I could, learn as much as I could. If there was a risk, take it. It was better to learn and die to be prepared for the future. I didn't want to die, even with the resets, but I knew I would. That said, for the near future, I wouldn't be doing anything particularly death-defying. I would be sitting on my rear, attempting to pull in energy with little to no innate ability to do so. For the next several days, I practiced the Earth Heart mantra alone in my tiny house. In reality, I spent most of the time simply waiting. Meals were brought by servants who never lingered to chat. It was a rather bleak existence. I tried my best to cultivate, but with zero affinity, progress seemed even harder than I'd anticipated. Fortunately, on the 5th day, things changed. Everyone was led to the large dirt square behind the houses, grandly dubbed the martial arts training yard. As we gathered, I noticed something odd. A few children were missing, including the red-robed jerk who had beaten me to death days prior. Combining that with the look of superiority he'd given me, I guessed the elites had been separated for special training. This seemed like good news for me. An older man with a more military demeanor stood in the center of the yard and began barking orders. "All right, quiet. Space out and circle around," he shouted. "For the next 3 months, you will all undergo extensive martial arts training. Every hour of every day, you will either be exercising, cultivating, or recovering. After 3 months, many of you will no longer be members of my clan. If you want any hope of remaining one, you will push yourself to do your best at every moment. If you do not want to be one, you will still push to do your best at every moment. Because if you don't, the moment you leave this place, you will learn what it's like to live as a commoner. Basic martial skills are a necessity. This training won't just be hard. It will be deadly. If you relax for even a moment, you might find out that it was your last. Now, time for a little demonstration, he said, an evil glint in his eye. Do we have any volunteers? Everyone froze. No one wanted to be the first to offer themselves for a beating. After a few tense moments, I decided to act. Was it stupid? Absolutely. Did I care? Not really. What was the worst that could happen? I stepped forward. I volunteer. Excellent, the instructor said, seemingly genuinely satisfied. Attack me. Again, I hesitated briefly, but after only a moment, I moved. I was no professional, but I'd picked up some fighting skills in my first life. I wasn't a UFC contender, but I was confident enough to handle a street tough. I knew I probably couldn't win, but if I could put on a good show, maybe I could earn a little respect. I rushed forward, launching a left jab at the man's chest. It wasn't a feint, but it wasn't a full power hit either. I needed him to raise his arms to block. As he did, I pivoted and swung my right fist at his midsection. This too was easily blocked. I worked as hard as I could, throwing punches and kicks whenever I saw a potential opening. The man blocked everything effortlessly. He didn't even bother to dodge or redirect the force of my attacks. He simply stuck out a palm and swatted me away. Good. It seems like at least someone knows a little about fighting, the instructor said happily. Then, his slight smile abruptly twisted into a scowl. Too bad you don't listen. I told you that if you relax for even a moment, you might die. Suddenly, he punched. The blow struck my head, stunning me. If this man was even close to as strong as the guard I had met earlier, he could kill me in a single hit, but he didn't. He spent several slow, agonizing minutes tenderizing my flesh. One bone after another snapped as he pummeled me. I wanted him to stop, but I couldn't speak. Finally, my body fell limply to the dirt ground. This is your lesson for today. In this training, slacking for even a moment means death. Every breath I took was agony. No one even gave me a second glance. You have died. Calculating. You died as a martial disciple one. 10 credits awarded. Total credits, 10. I sat back down in my house. Nothing made a sound, which was a welcome change. Waking from death was becoming routine, but it was still far from easy. The memories of bleeding out in the dirt lingered. Coming to during the awakening ceremony was always difficult, but returning to this tiny house had almost become a strange kind of comfort. I laughed bitterly. My purchase of that healing pill had been a waste. I was back in the same spot, same terrible body, 10 credits per. I considered buying another, but there was no point in wasting money. Better to see if I could complete this new encounter without it first. I did my best to replicate everything from my last life. I didn't have a heal body this time, but I still claimed it was healed. It didn't seem to make any difference to the examiner. The extra few days of practicing the Earth Heart mantra also made no difference. I was still unable to make any progress. So, when we all gathered at the martial arts training yard again, everything was pretty much exactly the same as last time. Now, time for a little demonstration, he said, with an evil glint in his eye. Do we have any volunteers? Having learned that volunteering meant death, I wisely chose to keep silent. I did my best impression of a stone, letting time pass as the murderer in front of me waited for a victim. HMPF, not a single person brave enough to even demonstrate what they know, the man said in a disgusted tone. Fine, you, step forward and show me something. The bastard was pointing right at me. Apparently, I was the designated whipping boy for the day. Sparring with him was almost certain death, so when I stepped forward, I simply began shadow boxing, trying to demonstrate my punches and kicks for him. What the hell are you doing? Get over here and fight. Now, I didn't want to go. Something shoved me forward. I managed to balance and get into an attacking stance. It didn't matter. You have died. Calculating. You died as a martial disciple one. 10 credits awarded. Total credits, 20. Again, why? The suffering didn't get any easier. Knowing what was happening only made it worse. I needed to calm down. I needed to talk it out and work through the problem. Why did I die? I asked myself in my tiny house, tracing cracks in the wooden floor with my eyes. Because a huge prick forced me to fight him. But he could have picked anyone. He picked me. He wanted to kill me. What? I stared straight ahead at the barren wall and rickety wooden door. Why is too difficult? Not enough information. What can I change so that it doesn't happen again? I considered the options for change. The easiest would be to simply stand in a different spot. That would be free, saving my credits. But it was also likely meaningless. There was no way it would work. Should I try it? It was an easily changeable variable. If it didn't work, all it meant was another death. Another painful, trauma-inducing death. I didn't want to experience that again, but it was worth checking. The credits from that death would be beneficial, and the system couldn't complain that the death was intentional. I shuddered. Yes, death hurts, I told myself, but I have to experiment to understand what variables are important. You have died. Calculating. You died as a Marshall Disciple 1. 10 credits awarded. Total credits, 30. Okay, nothing to do with where I was standing. I took a heavy, unsteady breath as I returned to my house. At least now I know. So what's left? Why am I being targeted? I thought of 3 possibilities. My background. Something unique about my background, or simply the fact that I'm an orphan, makes me the ideal target for this lesson. My actions. Something in the way I act between my revival and this demonstration leads to me being targeted. My skill. 0 affinity and no demonstrated blessing. This makes me appear worthless in the eyes of the higher-ups. I couldn't do anything about possibility 1, or rather, doing something about it would likely cost a significant amount of credits. As for possibility 2, while I could change my actions, I didn't know what specific actions might be causing such a reaction. More information would be useful for running tests, but I didn't know what to change. Plus, I truly did not want to suffer at that bastard's hands again. That left number 3. If I wanted to survive, I needed an affinity or a blessing. That way, I would at least have some perceived value. I could only purchase a permanent affinity increase once, though, at least only once at a discounted price. Was this the right time? No. It was better to learn more before wasting such an opportunity. Purchasing one-time upgrades would burn credits, but with any luck, the knowledge gained would be worth it. I also needed that healing pill. I wouldn't survive long without it, but buying one every time would add up. Of course. System. I want to buy a minor healing pill that will reappear after every death. You want to purchase a healing pill that will return to the storage space after each death. The cost is 200 credits. Processing. An external entity has discounted the price. Cost, 20 credits. The price wasn't bad. I had 30 credits, so I could buy that and still have enough for a one-time Earth Affinity boost. Was that the right thing to do? Or were the chances of still getting targeted with the lowest level affinity? Getting the next level would only be 25 more credits. I told myself, it's only 3 more deaths. As long as it was that guardsman, 3 more deaths wouldn't be too bad. When he killed me, it was painful, but it ended quickly. I could endure that. I could only hope the system didn't punish me. You have died. Calculating. You have died. Calculating. You have died. Calculating. You died as a Marshall Disciple 1. 10 credits awarded. Total credits, 60. System warning. Quick, repeated, intentional death detected. Further actions may result in an administrative response. I collapsed in my house, mentally exhausted. 3 rapid deaths. How bad could it be? It felt like my soul had begun to fracture. Yes, I was reborn. I was in perfect health, but I still felt myself die. The lingering memories persisted. Never again. I don't want to do that ever again. Centering myself, I focused on what I needed to do at that moment. System, I want to buy a minor healing pill that will reappear after every death. For a healing pill that will return to the storage space after each death, the cost is 20 credits. Purchase confirmed. 40 credits remaining. System, I want to buy the mid 9-star Earth Affinity that only lasts this lifetime. Temporary mid 9-star Earth Affinity. The cost is 35 credits. Purchase confirmed. 5 credits remaining. I felt the changes in my body. It was hard to describe. It just felt like my body was more real than it was before. Like I was moving through the world now, whereas before I was more like a ghost. We will see. Hopefully this works. What's your name? The elderly man at the testing orb asked. Su Fong. Place your hand on the orb and channel your chi into it. This time, I not only knew what to do, but the action came much more easily. Chi flowed from my dantian into the orb, where a dull brown stone materialized. Earth affinity. Middle of 9-star, the elderly man stated. His voice was only slightly kinder than before. Honestly, I still didn't know what a good result was. What can you tell us about the blessing you've received? The healing and slight strengthening of my body, I said. The mysterious angle hadn't worked before, so being straightforward seemed like a better approach. Works with the Earth affinity. Very well. Give him the Earth Heart mantra and return him. This wasn't much different from my past experiences, but the faint hint of praise gave me a smile of hope. As before, I picked up the scroll and went back to my tiny house. At this point, I didn't really need the scroll anymore. I already knew what it said. Practicing it this time, however, was different. As I followed the instructions, I could feel a significant change. Cultivating Qi with Earth affinity. The Earth Heart mantra guides you to move Qi within your body in a specific way. The first step involves directing it towards your right upper arm, creating a whirlpool effect. The goal is to draw Qi from outside your body and trap it within your muscles. Simultaneously, you must create what's essentially a filter, allowing only Earth Qi into your body. The purer the Earth Qi, the more effective it will be. In the past, this was incredibly difficult. Concentrating Qi, creating a whirlpool, and building an effective filter were all beyond my comprehension. This time, though, it seemed to just work. Moving Qi and forming the whirlpool was as simple as breathing. I quickly reached the point where my body began pulling Qi from the air. The moment it did, however, I immediately stopped. Pulling in random Qi would do more harm than good. I needed to filter it first. The purity dilemma. For what I could tell, the Qi I was pulling in was already at least 50% Earth attributed. My mid-9-star Earth affinity was clearly helping. It was still a risk to gather Qi randomly, but maybe not a deal breaker. Still, I should try to do it correctly. I tried to form the filter pattern from the scroll. My attempt looked close, but as I pulled Qi through it, the pattern quickly collapsed. So not so easy. Still, it was just a matter of practice. Is this worth the effort, though? I suddenly asked myself, what was the point of working so hard to purify it and only pull an Earth-attributed Qi? The scroll said it would make the Qi more powerful. If a chaotic mix of Qi was pulled in during cultivation, it would interfere with the Earth Qi, negating most benefits. The purer the Qi, the more effective it would be. Extremely high Qi purity could be several times more potent than low purity Qi. That's why a strong, pure foundation was considered important. However, I kept considering, did that matter right now? What was my current goal? To become the strongest person in the world, or to just advance one step forward, gaining experience and credits along the way? The scroll implied that low Qi purity could keep someone stuck as a martial disciple forever, but it also seemed to suggest that one could still reach peak disciple regardless of Qi purity. So, I could become a peak disciple, learn everything I could from experience, die, and collect credits for a high cultivation level. Then, in the next life, I could start with an even higher affinity. I'd live a series of lives, each slowly building on the last. Was I okay with this strategy? It meant deliberately accepting death. This wasn't suicide, and while premeditated, it shouldn't violate the system's restrictions. Still, I think it's what I have to do, I told myself. As long as I have time in between, I'll be fine. I thought about the plan's viability. I need to learn the Qi filter eventually, even if purity wasn't my immediate concern. It seemed like a waste not to practice it for the future. So, yes, I practice it, maybe an hour a day. But my main focus needed to be on simply grabbing as much Qi as possible and advancing as far as possible. That seemed like the way to gain the most from each reset. That I walked to the martial arts training yard with determination. I was still only a martial disciple 1, but I could feel the Qi in my right arm surging. It was nearing a breakthrough. In just a few more days, I'd finally see what it meant to be a martial disciple 2. Hopefully I get there. Now, time for a little demonstration, the instructor said with a murderous air about him. Do we have any volunteers? Like everyone else, I remained silent. I wasn't about to put myself forward again. Not a single person brave enough to even demonstrate what they know, the man said in a disgusted tone. Fine. You, step forward and show me something. The bastard was pointing right at someone else. It worked. Not being seen as completely worthless by the clan seemed to have at least one benefit. The unfortunate victim of this lesson was rather unfortunate. Thankfully, it wasn't me this time. I just stood there with a crowd of 16-year-olds and watched as one of our number was beaten to death in front of us. This place was just wrong. This is your lesson for today. In this training, slacking for even a moment means death. He gave us all a meaningful look. Now, pair up and fight. I want to see if any of you have any possibility of being worthy of my clan in the future. Slowly, the crowd began to move as people paired off. My neighbor and I simply nodded at each other and took our positions to begin sparring. At that moment, a roar ripped through the yard. What the hell are you doing? What was that? I told you to fight, not play around. Looks like you didn't understand my little demonstration earlier. The instructor charged over to a pair on the other side of the yard. As soon as he arrived, he kicked out and broke one guy's arm. Then he reached out, grabbed the other guy's arm, and snapped it in half. If you aren't using those to fight, you don't need them anymore, he said with disdain. Now, everyone get back to fighting, and do it like you mean it. This wasn't training, this was abuse. It wasn't about teaching us to become fighters. It was about suppressing and breaking us. Was he trying to turn us into soldiers? Impossible. There was no way this could build an effective fighting force. Still, I knew better than to openly question anything at this point. I was stuck here. I had to learn to survive. Survival came before trying to understand or change the socio-political landscape. I focused my mind and was relentless. I did everything I could to beat my sparring partner into a bloody pulp. None of us had any special cultivation power. It was all about basic martial prowess. As I said before, I was no master fighter, but I could take out a street tough. The child I was forced to fight didn't stand a chance. Even though I had a clear advantage, I kept my attention on everything around me to a paranoid degree. I knew that bastard was just waiting for an excuse to take me down, so I wouldn't give him one. At least, I wouldn't let him say I was too relaxed. This training lasted for 2 grueling hours. Finally, it was over. Congratulations, you survived day 1. I'll be back in a week. If you haven't improved, you'll be retired from future sessions. Consider this week my gift. Cultivate and train hard, children. Your 3 months have just begun. In the following days, I pushed myself hard. I didn't worry about practicing fighting. In my mind, I had enough of a lead on these kids that I wasn't concerned about them gaining an extra month of practice. No, I focused on cultivating my chi with the Earth Heart mantra, which would strengthen my body and secure a few extra future credits. Just 2 days after our training session, I made my first breakthrough. The chi in my right upper arm muscles became so dense that I was unable to continue. The next step was to find the acupoint in my arm. According to the scroll, it was supposed to be on the outside of the arm, near the natural divot where the arm and shoulder muscles meet. I was supposed to find this point by slowly moving chi around and locating a place where it felt sticky. This alone took me several days. It was easy to get fed up with the process. I was basically slowly groping around in the dark, trying to feel something when I had no idea what I should be feeling. It wasn't until the 3rd day that I succeeded. After that, the process was brutally simple. Concentrate my chi into a sharp point and stab from the inside of my arm, through the acupoint, and outside my body. This seemed like something only the reckless would try without proper guidance. But I didn't have that luxury, and I didn't really care if I messed it up. I just needed to learn from it and do better next time. As I stabbed, I could feel chi pour out of me. Nearly everything I'd worked so long to gather vanished in a few heartbeats. There were no visible signs I had done anything to my arm, but it felt like I was left with a gaping spiritual wound through which the dregs of my remaining chi began to trickle out. Finally, with what little energy I had remaining, I reconstructed the chi whirlpool in my arm, pulling energy in instead of letting it flow out. I should mention here again that I was supposed to create an effective filter so that only Earth Chi was pulled in, but I didn't bother. That was something I'd deal with in the future. Chi poured in at several times its previous rate. It had taken me days to fill my arm with Chi before. Now it took only a few hours. In what felt like no time, I was back to my peak with one arm brimming with Chi. Before, I had to consciously hold the Chi whirlpool in place and focus on cultivation. After breaking through, this became like an autonomous bodily function. The Chi in my right arm would constantly replenish itself whenever it ran low. I had reached Martial Disciple 2. There was no time to sit around. I needed to start on the left A.R.M.B. By the time our week of training was over, I felt I'd made considerable progress toward reaching Martial Disciple 3. It was a bit harder to pull energy into my left arm than it had been with my right. It felt like there was almost a magnetic repulsion at work. But each day, the Chi was becoming denser. It was only a matter of time. As we arrived at the training yard, the instructor looked at me in surprise. An honest-to-goodness smile appeared on his face. He seemed genuinely happy, not just derisively so, when he saw me. Since I was the only one to generate this reaction, I guessed I was the only one to make a breakthrough this week. I felt kind of proud of myself. All right, pair off and fight. This time, he actually gave a few pointers on how to fight better. Shocking. A couple of kids did end up getting brutally beaten by him, but no one died. I didn't know if I was adapting or just developing Stockholm Syndrome, but things did seem to be looking up. Stop! Circle around, he finally shouted after a few hours. Some of you are actually progressing nicely, so I have good news for you. In 2 weeks, it will be the end of your first month of training. At that time, there will be a small competition. You may have noticed that several people you started with aren't here right now. During their evaluation, they were graded as having exceptional potential, so they've been receiving specialized training. At the end of the month, you'll be free to challenge them for their position. If you can defeat one of them, you'll get their spot and all the resources that come with it. Train hard. As we were dismissed, everyone began walking back to their homes, but as I was turning away, our instructor stopped me. Keep up with your current efforts, he said encouragingly. I look forward to seeing you challenge for a spot at the end of the month. I smiled and bowed to him. It had been a rough start, but maybe everything was beginning to work itself out. The following 2 weeks were a grind, demanding yet fulfilling. To an outsider, it might have looked like I was simply sitting in meditation, but beneath the surface, my body and mind were undergoing constant stress. I was drawing in large amounts of Chi using my cultivation method, creating a steady internal flow while also forming a whirlpool of energy in focused areas. Though my body remained mostly still, the mental burden was immense. Circulating the Chi was no small feat at first. It felt like the energy was stuck in my muscles, unwilling to move. But persistence paid off. Gradually, the flow became more stable, allowing me to push further. Simultaneously, I had to form a consistent whirlpool of Chi. Any disruption in it would ruin the entire process and make cultivation dangerously inefficient. Once a muscle group was filled with Chi, I needed to identify and pierce the acupoints to progress. This part was like navigating in complete darkness. I guided my Chi carefully, searching for areas of slight resistance, then pushed through. Though far from perfect, I managed to succeed. I broke through in both my upper left arm and chest, marking my advance to Martial Disciple Level 4. The progress brought with it an intoxicating confidence. For the first time, I felt like nothing could stop me. Compared to my peers in practice yard, I wasn't just more skilled, I was also physically superior now. Though I didn't know how powerful the elite disciples were, a sense of certainty bloomed within me. I believe I could take on anyone. Soon, we were summoned from our courtyard. We walked along stone roads bordered by high walls, eventually arriving at a small stadium. On one side, elders watched from a balcony. Opposite them, 10 young men sat in elegant darkwood chairs, clearly the so-called elite. Our instructor stepped aside as a man in formal robes addressed us. I am Su Huatian, 8th elder of the Su clan. Today, you stand before the elite chosen of this generation, our clan's pride. But remember, all of you have a chance to prove yourselves. This is your opportunity to challenge them. After today, only 2 more chances remain. As we bowed in respect, I looked at the so-called elites. Could I defeat one of them? Without hesitation, I believed I could. I was already a martial disciple for, after all. My instructor met my eyes and gave a subtle nod. That was all the confirmation I needed. I pointed toward one of the 10, my target, and stepped forward. I challenged him. Gasps rippled through the disciples behind me. Even the elite I pointed at was stunned into silence. Step onto the stage, the elder instructed. We stood face to face. The elder raised his hand. This is a match to submission. While fatal injury is not the goal, be warned, injuries may occur. Do you understand? Yes, elder, we both responded. Begin. Without hesitation, I charged. I didn't bother with subtlety. I wanted to showcase raw power. My punch came from the right, a wild swing to make a statement. But to my shock, the boy met my strike with his own. Our fists collided. In an instant, my arm shattered. Even then, I pressed forward. I launched a left hook, but he was faster. A blur of blows landed on my body. My bones cracked, my strength faded, and I collapsed like a broken doll. I couldn't move. I had lost. The elder stepped forward, voice steady. Let this be a lesson. This disciple rushed to advance his cultivation without a proper foundation. Such recklessness leads only to ruin. Finish it, he said. I died. And when I awoke back in my modest room, the system confirmed it. I had died as a martial disciple for earning 40 credits. My total rose to 45. I was furious. Furious at the system, at myself. How could I have been so arrogant? I reviewed every decision I had made. That confidence, where had it come from? Had my technique affected my mindset? Despite the setback, I couldn't give up. I needed to improve. I now understood that I had been cultivating without filtering my chi, allowing impurities to taint my strength. That had to change. With credits in hand, I made a decision. System, purchase a temporary mid-9-star Earth affinity again. Credits deducted. Boost applied. Another month passed, and I returned to the arena. This time, my control had vastly improved. My whirlpools were smoother, and locating acupoints became more intuitive. I had broken through to Martial Disciple 4 again, but with a stronger foundation. I told myself I wouldn't fight. Not yet. But when the elder asked for challengers, my instructor pushed me forward. I smiled and pointed to the same elite as before. I launched myself into battle, avoiding his strong side, aiming to take him by surprise. The moment I neared him, everything went black. You have died. Martial Disciple 4. 40 credits awarded. Total, 50. Back in my room, frustration burned hotter than before. I had known the risk, had tried to resist. And still I charged in. Was the technique warping my thoughts? Or was it simply a lesson in emotional control? I resolved to try again. Another month passed. My cultivation reached Martial Disciple 5. Now both arms, my chest, and my left leg were strengthened. My control was excellent. I had even begun forming a weak chi filter. I returned to the arena more confident than ever. This time, I didn't wait. I challenged him. I declared once more. You have died. Martial Disciple 5. 50 credits awarded. Total, 65. And yet, I smiled. Despite the deaths, despite the setbacks, each failure had brought me progress. I was getting stronger, sharper, more in control. Next time, I wouldn't just survive. Next time, I would win. I should have seen that one coming, I muttered, leaning back in defeat. Once again, I was back in my small, quiet home at the start of a new month, and a creeping frustration clung to me. That last life had been especially rough. It felt like every reckless decision I made after hitting Martial Disciple 5 was completely justified until I died and looked back at it all. Then it was obvious. I had lost control. Something changed after reaching that level. The pressure, the mental instability, the overwhelming confidence. It all felt too calculated to be coincidence. Was it just cultivation backlash? Or was something else influencing my mind? Could it be a drug in the food? Or some kind of environmental factor affecting my judgment? The cause didn't really matter anymore. What mattered was the pattern, The moment I reached level 5, someone made sure I died. Whether I agreed to fight or not, I'd be forced in a battle, and I wouldn't survive. There was no future in that path. Sure, reaching level 5 earned me 15 credits per run, but dying every month for that payout was unbearable. Besides, advancing to level 6 in a month wasn't realistic. I was nearing the ceiling of what I could accomplish with my current understanding. Even with dedication, the growth had limits. I had to find another way forward that I considered improving my elemental affinity permanently. It could slightly boost my income, but it wouldn't solve the underlying problem. Switching elements might be another option, but from what I'd seen, all 5 basic affinities were treated equally. It seemed unlikely that a different element would change my situation. Then an idea came to me. What if I just did it right? Up until now, I'd been rushing my cultivation, gathering as much chi as possible, as fast as I could, with little thought to purity. But I'd already practiced using a chi filter to absorb only earth chi. This time, I would focus entirely on cultivating properly, refining only the purest earth chi from the very start. To my surprise, it worked. The filter was more effective than ever before. But pulling in filtered chi took real effort. Each advancement made my internal chi denser, which in turn made further cultivation more difficult. Level 5, in particular, felt like trying to draw energy through thick mud. In terms of effort, cultivating filtered chi at level 1 was about as difficult as unfiltered chi at level 4. Still, progress came. By the end of the month, I had reached Martial Disciple 3. But something didn't add up. If I could reach that level so cleanly, why were the elite disciples only at level 2? I examined the chi in my body. Previously, my earth chi purity was maybe 50%. With a new filter, it was closer to 70%. Better, but still not ideal. I spent the remainder of the month trying to refine the filter, but I couldn't push it any higher. I had no reference for what level of purity the elite disciples maintained, only that they were at Martial Disciple 2. Still, if I'd surpassed them in level, I'd probably still be singled out. When the day of the challenges arrived, I remained in place. This time, the usual compulsion to fight was dulled. I still heard a voice whispering encouragement. Maybe you'll win this time, but I stayed quiet. Then Deacon Sue did what he always did. After no volunteers stepped forward, he pointed me out to the elder, essentially forcing me into battle again. And again, despite my efforts to resist, curiosity won. I died. Martial Disciple 3. 30 credits earned. Every single time, I groaned, pounding my fist into the floor. But this time had been different. The impulse to fight wasn't as strong. Whether due to a lower level or increased mental resistance, I felt like I was finally starting to wrestle back control. But that left me with another problem: sustainability. Using a mid-level affinity without pushing past level 3 was a losing strategy. The return didn't justify the cost. Perhaps I could lower the affinity to balance expenses? I tried it. Low-level Earth affinity. I didn't even make a week before I was targeted and killed again. Martial Disciple 1. 10 credits. Barely worth the time. The alternative? Go all in on a high affinity. Maybe even strong enough to grant elite status from the start. But the cost was staggering. One temporary high-tier affinity cost 85 credits. To make a profit, I need to reach Martial Disciple 9. That kind of gamble had more risk than reward. I could also suppress my cultivation to stay under the radar, but that meant stagnation. Without growth, what was the point? Just scraping by for 3 months to escape this cursed clan? Could I even push Martial Disciple to its limit without ever revealing it? The deeper I thought, the more questions surfaced. What would make the clan want me alive? High affinity might do it, but again, expensive. A divine blessing? Impressive, but hard to fake. What if I learned a profession? That was a path few explored. If I could demonstrate rare, practical skills, the clan might find value in keeping me around. Every life, I'd improve. Each time, my blessing would grow stronger. System, show me basic knowledge about cultivator-specific trades. Very basic knowledge of cultivator trade skills. Cost, 1 credit. Purchase confirmed. 59 credits remaining. 5 common cultivator professions were revealed, each linked to an element. Refiners, metal, crafted weapons and tools. Beast tamers, water, controlled spiritual beasts. Alchemists, fire, created pills to enhance cultivation or heal. Herbalists, wood, specialized in growing spiritual plants. Formation masters, earth, manipulated chi to create protective or offensive arrays. Immediately, I began narrowing my options. Herbalist and beast tamer felt too passive or situational. I needed something I could demonstrate quickly. Formation sounded promising, but involved rare materials. Refiners required minerals and ores. That left alchemy, pills, fire affinity, and a more personal enhancement path. System, give me a basic overview of refining, alchemy, and formations. Cost, 3 credits. Purchase confirmed. 56 credits remaining. After reviewing, alchemy stood out. Pills could directly benefit me, improve my cultivation, and only required herbs. Much easier to obtain than ores or complex reagents. Decision made. System, I want to become a skilled alchemist. Would you like to purchase the knowledge of a master alchemist? Cost, 10 billion credits. No. Disciple alchemist? 10 million credits. Still no. All right. How about basic public knowledge of alchemy? Cost, 10 credits. Purchase confirmed. 46 credits remaining. Fragments of information enter my mind, enough to recognize a few herbs and understand the basics. It was a star, but barely that. To practice alchemy, I needed fire affinity, and if I was serious, it had to be permanent. System, grant me permanent mid 9-star fire affinity. Cost, 35 credits. Discounted. Confirmed. 11 credits remaining. Note, future fire affinity upgrades will also be discounted. As the affinity settled in my body, I felt the shift. Intense, raw, and powerful. It was different from Earth. Fiercer, wilder. With my final credits, I asked the system to boost my ability to study and retain alchemy knowledge. Severely limited alchemy learning enhancement. Cost, 11 credits. Purchase confirmed. 0 credits remaining. This was it. A new path. A new element. A new profession. A new life. What is your name? The elderly man beside the glowing orb asked, voice dry as parchment. Sufang. Place your hand on the orb and channel your chi into it. I moved on instinct, this process, so familiar now it might as well have been muscle memory. I placed my hand on the orb. Chi flowed from my dantian like a calm stream, and moments later, a dull red flame ignited in the center. Fire affinity. Middle of 9 stars, the man announced. His voice carried a note of subtle intrigue. Not suspicion, not awe, but something. And the blessing you believe you've received? Time for the bluff. Or maybe, time for the truth wrapped in uncertainty. I believe I've been blessed in alchemy, I said, trying not to fidget. I feel I'll be able to learn it more easily than most. The old man studied me in silence. A pause longer than anything I'd experienced in previous lives. He was weighing something. Give him the guided flame mantra and return him. I took the scroll and returned to my new quarters. Another iteration of that cramped little hut that had become both my prison and my sanctuary. The outcome had shifted slightly. Barely, but I could feel the difference. All pose, all glance, all slate recognition. Next life, I might have a real shot. The guided flame mantra, it was eerily similar to the Earth Heart mantra I'd used before. The main difference lay in the filtration pattern. Now it excluded all but fire chi. Everything else, from the spiraling circulation to the whirlpool pattern in the dantian, remained fundamentally the same. I didn't waste time pretending to care about purity this round. I ignored the filter and pulled chi as fast as possible. My goal was simple. Raise to Martial Disciple level 5, earn 50 credits, and reset. The fire affinity proved smoother than expected. The change in element didn't hinder my progress. In fact, it seemed even more compatible with my cultivation flow. Within the month, I'd reached level 5 again. And just like that, I stood at the challenge grounds once more playing my role. Does anyone wish to challenge? The elder asked. Silence. Su looked at me. I nodded. His gaze narrowed in satisfaction. Deacon Su? The elder inquired. I believe one of our disciples would benefit greatly from a public match. Su Fong, he said, gesturing. Please demonstrate. Of course, Deacon Su. I bowed. I challenged the 8th-ranked disciple. I took my stance solemnly. I didn't need to act. I had done this too many times. The elite was a martial disciple level 2, an expert among us new sprouts. I rushed him, feinting left to appear overly aggressive. But like clockwork, it happened again. You have died. Calculating. You died as a martial disciple 5. 50 credits awarded. Total credits, 50. The walk back to my house felt like eternity. I wasn't heartbroken or confused. I was disturbed. Why did I act so loyal? So noble? Only 2 things had changed, my affinity and the cultivation technique. I rubbed my temple. Guided flame, indeed. System. I muttered, can I purchase a technique without mental side effects? The cost of such a technique is not possible to calculate at this time. Then, can you reduce the mental effects? Cost cannot be calculated at this time. So that was that. But the effects reset after every death. For now, I'd have to accept being a puppet once per life, so long as I gathered more tools to fight back. The fire affinity proved smoother than expected. The change in element didn't hinder my progress. In fact, it seemed even more compatible with my cultivation flow. Within the month, I'd reached level 5 again. And just like that, I stood at the challenge grounds once more playing my role. Does anyone wish to challenge? The elder asked. Silence. Su looked at me. I nodded. His gaze narrowed in satisfaction. Deacon Su? The elder inquired. I believe one of our disciples would benefit greatly from a public match. Su Fong, he said, gesturing. Please demonstrate. Of course, Deacon Su. I bowed. I challenged the 8th-ranked disciple. I took my stance solemnly. I didn't need to act. I had done this too many times. The elite was a martial disciple level 2, an expert among us new sprouts. I rushed him, feinting left to appear overly aggressive. But like clockwork, it happened again. You have died. Calculating. You died as a martial disciple 5. 50 credits awarded. Total credits, 50. The walk back to my house felt like eternity. I wasn't heartbroken or confused. I was disturbed. Why did I act so loyal? So noble? Only 2 things had changed, my affinity and the cultivation technique. I rubbed my temple. Guided flame, indeed. System. I muttered, can I purchase a technique without mental side effects? The cost of such a technique is not possible to calculate at this time. Then, can you reduce the mental effects? Cost cannot be calculated at this time. So that was that. But the effects reset after every death. For now, I'd have to accept being a puppet once per life, so long as I gathered more tools to fight back. They were using mind control. They had to know the scroll made me an obedient pawn. That meant they'd let their guard down. And when they did, I'd strike. Even if I couldn't act this life, the next would remember everything. System, I said, I want to permanently upgrade my Fire Chi affinity to high 9-star. Permanent high 9-star fire affinity. Cost, 50 credits. Purchase. Confirmed. 0 credits remaining. Let's try again. Fire affinity. High 9 stars. The elder said, now openly surprised. And the blessing? He asked again. I believe I've been blessed in alchemy. I feel like that's what I'm meant to do, I said, hesitating just the right amount. The old man stared long and hard. Are you sure? Not entirely, but it's a strong feeling. Give him the guided flame mantra, he said at last, and send him to Alchemist Rudy. Success. This time, the guard didn't march me to the old hut. He took me through another courtyard, smaller but better maintained. Only one building stood in its center, styled like a 2-story home. A strip of green surrounded the edges. It looked almost pleasant. The guard bowed toward the door. Master Alchemist, I beg leave to enter. Come in, said an airy voice from within. Inside stood a man clad in a flamboyant sky-blue robe embroidered in gold. He tried to emanate gravitas, but I saw indulgence hiding beneath the surface. What do you want, guardsman? Master Alchemist, I bring this youth per order of the elders. They ask that he be tested and taught, if possible. The alchemist's eyes slid to me. Affinity? High 9-star fire affinity, sir, I answered. Smack. The guard slapped me across the face. You will address him as Master Alchemist, he snarled. Understood. Yes, sir, sorry, Master Alchemist. The alchemist chuckled softly. No matter. I shall test him. Tell the elders I accept no fault if he's too stupid to learn. Of course, Master Alchemist. Leave us. The guard bowed again and backed out, never turning his back until the door clicked shut. That will be your room, he said, pointing to a closet-sized corner cell, smaller than even my old house. Your food will be delivered. Do not exit until you reach Martial Disciple Level 4. And don't bother with purity. We alchemists fix those things later. Yes, Master Alchemist, I said, bowing. Stop. I didn't give you leave to speak. Don't do it again. I nodded, bowed again, and retreated to my new room. Once the door shut, I let out a deep breath. That man reeked of superiority and manipulation, but I would endure. He wanted me to cultivate quickly, a direct contradiction to Deacon Sue's teachings. But his plan made sense. Cripple my foundation and twist my mind with the mantra side effects. That way, I'd never pose a threat to him. He didn't know who he was dealing with. 3 weeks later, I reached Martial Disciple Level 4 again. Let the puppet strings tighten. I would learn what I needed, and when this body fell, the next would rise sharper than ever. I would become an alchemist, and then I would change everything. I stepped out of seclusion and entered the building's main hall. A pill furnace sat solemnly atop a stone plinth at the center, surrounded by rows of shelves and cupboards along both walls, each one neatly filled with herbs and medicinal ingredients. A staircase along the far wall led to the second floor. The master alchemist wasn't present. Unsure of the proper etiquette, but unwilling to waste time, I moved to the side, knelt, and began cultivating while I waited. He returned the very next day. The moment I sensed his arrival, I ceased cultivation and lowered my head, waiting. He made a slow round through the room, inspecting the herbs in silence. Finally, he turned his gaze toward me. Good. Maybe you can be taught. Though I kept my head bowed, excitement bloomed in my chest. First, there are things you need to understand. He stepped closer, his tone turning instructional. I'm not the most skilled alchemist in this clan. In fact, I'm only a disciple alchemist. I have not yet advanced to the rank of master. He folded his arms and tilted his head. Do you know why the guardsman who brought you here was so polite? Why he kept addressing me as Master Alchemist? I hesitated. He hadn't given me permission to speak, but his expression allowed for a reply. Because all alchemists are respected? I ventured. His face twisted into a scowl. If you don't know, say so. Do not guess. I lower my head. I don't know. He was so respectful because of potential. I'm the only alchemist in this clan with a high 8-star fire affinity. The elders are terrified I'll leave this wasteland for better prospects. There are powers beyond the waste that would welcome me with open arms. My destiny is not tied to this little clan. His eyes met mine. I understood the implication clearly. Where should my loyalty lie? With a clan that had used and discarded me repeatedly, or with the only person who saw potential in me? I gave a respectful nod. We understand one another, he continued. Now, let's be clear. Your affinity is trash. A high 9-star might sound impressive to commoners, but to me, you'll never reach my level, let alone surpass it. Still, you might be of some use. Perform well, and when I eat meat, you'll be allowed to sip the soup. I bowed deeply. Thank you, teacher. Here's your first task. He handed me a weathered leather-bound book. There are 157 herbs in this hall, all used for rank 1 or rank 2 pills. This book details them all. Names, appearances, and proper storage methods. Memorize it. Maintain herbs. No servants are allowed to touch them. This is my task. If you pass my test, it will become yours. Also, keep cultivating. He turned and left. I returned to my room with the book clutched tightly. The task seemed simple but daunting. Memorize and master the care of over 100 different herbs. My investment in fire affinity seemed foolish now. Perhaps I should have used those credits to enhance my memory instead. Still, I pressed on. By the end of the first month, I had reached Martial Disciple Level 5, a bit slower than usual, but I had prioritized studying. At 7 weeks, I finally stepped into Martial Disciple Level 6. That was when I hit a wall. With only the lower arms and legs remaining, I chose to open the right forearm first, and the resistance nearly crushed me. Drawing chi now was like pushing against a mountain. Reaching level 7 would be no small feat. 2 full months passed. Confident that I'd memorized the herb manual, I stepped into the hall and waited. The teacher appeared within hours. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I held up the book. "Teacher, I've completed the memorization." "Do not call me master," he snapped. "You are not my disciple. In private, call me teacher. If others are around, use teacher Rudy. If it's someone outside the clan, call me teacher Sue." He turned and walked to the shelves, returning with 5 herbs. "What is this?" he asked, holding thin wood-like strips. "A straggleous root. How do you maintain it?" "Dry thoroughly. Store in a dry, cool space with ventilation. Use within 2 years for best potency." Next was a red berry the size of cherry. "Hawthorn berry. Ow! Dry it and keep in hawthorn leaves, stored in a dark, dry place with mild temperatures." He continued through the others, offering no praise or criticism. Finally, he nodded. "You'll take over herb maintenance. If I or anyone else is present, leave immediately. Return to your room." "Understood." "Yes, teacher." Another month passed. Progress toward level 7 remained slow, but at least I was making headway. My herb tending seemed satisfactory. Though teacher never offered compliments, I was confident he was pleased. One day, as I worked, he descended the stairs. "Stay," he said. He walked over to the largest herb chest, filled with rows of blue-petaled flowers. "What is this?" "Blue peony." "What is it used for?" "I do not know." "Good. You shouldn't. Go pick one." I selected a flower at random. "When you take one, record it here." He handed me a ledger. "They cost 5 silvers each. You will repay every coin." I bowed and made the entry. "Follow me." He led me into a new room, bare except for an old pill furnace and a small table. "This is how you make chi gathering powder. You must heat the furnace intensely. Burn off impurities, but do not ignite the flower. Use your chi to control the flame." He demonstrated once. A black smoke rose, then the flower collapsed into pale blue powder. "When you're ready, practice." "There are 10 bags here. Complete 10 successful portions, then report. Every failure costs money, but if you work hard, you'll pay it all back." I bowed again. My attempts were disastrous. The flowers burst into flames instantly. Frustrated, I stopped. If I continued blindly, I'd waste dozens more. I needed to control fire chi outside my body, not just within, so I lit the furnace and stared at the flames. I studied the movement of chi, forcing it to obey. It took me 3 weeks to gain basic control. Another week passed before I could prevent the flower from igniting. One more week to identify the perfect temperature. In total, 28 flowers were lost before I made my first successful dose. By the end, I had used 47 peonies. I presented the powders to teacher. "Follow," he said. He brought me to another storage room, this one with boxes, bags, and a door leading outside. "Put your work in here. Mark the ledger. Your debt will be updated." He pointed to another box. "The chi gathering powder is useful only to the lowest cultivators. It has no pill toxins, but also almost no potency. It sells for 10 copper. He made a quick calculation. "You made 10 portions. That's 1 silver. You used 47 peonies, 235 silver, or 2 gold and 35 silver in debt." I was stunned. "Good," he said. "You understand. Chi gathering powder is what you make when you fail. Watch." He made another demonstration, but this time the peony melted into a silver-blue liquid. Black smoke rose gently. Then the liquid solidified into a glowing pellet. "This is a rank 1 basic chi gathering pill, suitable for martial disciples 1 to 3. It retains about 87% medicinal power. Any pill below 80% is trash." He showed 2 more. One burned too hot, one too cold. "This one," he said, holding the first, "is high purity. It sells for 10 silver. The others are worthless. If you make a mistake, salvage it into powder. You'll recover some cost. If you succeed, store it in jade bottles and record it. The clan will assess its value." Then he turned to leave. "I'll be traveling soon. Stay here. Cultivate. 10 herbs. Learn alchemy. That is your path now. And with that, he was gone. After teacher left, I didn't see him again. Not for a month. Not for a year. But for decades. It took me nearly 3 years to concoct my first pill. And when I returned the next day to check the ledger, I discovered what I already suspected. It had been classified as trash. Still, I persisted. I didn't submit another pill for a full year. During that time, I finally advanced to Martial Disciple level 7. Years trickled by like drops of water over stone. Slowly, steadily, without pause. I began submitting pills more frequently, but none ever passed muster. Every single one of them was marked trash. Useless. Unworthy. I hadn't been taught how to assess pill quality myself. If I had, I would have stopped submitting my failures long ago. But over time, something changed. I began to feel the alchemy. The flower wasn't just a blue peony anymore. It was a mesh of chaotic energy, tangled threads wrapped tightly around a single, vibrant green strand of power. That green, that was the medicine. The rest was useless noise as I refined the flower. The chaos threads burned away, and if I overstepped, if the heat was too strong, that green core began to evaporate with them. Waste. The hardest part was managing the distribution of heat and chi. A single hotspot, and the whole process spiraled out of control. I had to shift my energy constantly, flowing from danger to danger, never resting, never letting imbalance creep in. Once the process was unstable, it was unrecoverable. That was why teacher had taught me the value of chi gathering powder, a fallback, a way to salvage failure before it consumed everything. And so I endured. Decades passed. Slowly, my rate of failure dropped. Trash pills became rare. I still couldn't produce pills of value, but I was almost always able to convert disasters into powder. It wasn't until I was past 50 years old that I experienced a true breakthrough. I learned to breathe fire chi, to wrap it, bend it, smooth it out like oil and water. It didn't solve every problem. The chaotic threads weren't evenly distributed, but it helped. That year, I submitted my first low-purity basic chi gathering pill. By then, I was a Martial Disciple level 8, and my cultivation had slowed to a crawl. Drawing in chi was agonizing. My body was too old, too weary, and I knew this was it. I might never make another advancement in this life. Yet strangely, it was this very increase in cultivation that had allowed me to create that first successful pill. More strength, more control, more finesse. And so, I made a decision. It felt like betrayal, consuming a pill I had created instead of depositing it in the ledger. But I told myself it was necessary. If I could advance, I could make better pills. And that was the only way I could ever repay teacher. So I swallowed it. Chi surged through me like wildfire, faster than I'd felt in decades. Teacher had once said these pills were only suitable for Martial Disciples 1 to 3. But maybe he wasn't telling the full truth. Even at level 8, the effect was powerful. Is he the one who has been making our pills? Asked the older man beside him. Yes, teacher replied. Then, turning back to me, return to your room. Come back in 1 hour. I bowed low and obeyed. My heart was pounding. He had come back. Exactly 1 hour later, I returned to the main hall. The 3 men sat at a table before me. My legs trembled. I have reviewed the ledgers, teacher said. The expenses you've incurred are staggering. You've never created anything better than a low-purity pill. And even those are worth less than the ingredients used. I bowed in shame. I didn't calculate your full debt, but I estimate it exceeds 100,000 gold. Do you agree? Yes, teacher Sue. Good. You are honest. What is your plan to repay this debt? I have none. I only hope to improve enough to begin repayment. But I have failed. You are not my disciple, he said, but you acknowledge your debt. Good. He nodded toward the older man. This is Su Yuan Fei, second elder of the Su clan. I bowed. The clan is failing, he continued. Ever since the current patriarch seized power, calamity has followed. The Su clan teeters on the edge of collapse. You'll help us restore it. In doing so, you will repay your debt. My heart swelled. Finally, I could serve teacher, but instead they threw me to the ground. I found myself in a massive hall, surrounded by dozens of elders seated behind a U-shaped table. Patriarch, we have found the traitor, Su Yuanfei declared. This man has been poisoning our disciples. Hiding in the abandoned alchemy hall, siphoning resources, slowly infecting our pills with toxin. Dozens of eyes glared at me with hatred. You're all bastards, I shouted, my voice trembling. The Su clan is finished. Just wait. I laughed, long and broken and loud. Take him away, the patriarch shouted. They dragged me to a dungeon. The torture began immediately. I was old, frail, but they were careful to keep me alive. Whenever I got too close to death, they'd force a healing pill down my throat, just to keep the pain going. After nearly a week, I finally broke. I lied. I told them that the Great Elder and the Fourth Elder had plotted the Su clan's fall. It didn't matter anymore. I was taken to the central courtyard, dragged before the entire Su clan. Before they executed me, I gave them my final words. The Su clan is finished. I smiled, a bloody, broken smile. Then they killed me. You have died. Calculating. You died as a martial disciple peak. 100 credits awarded. Total credits, 100. And with a single bloody smile, he dies framed, broken, forgotten. Or so they think. But what if death is just the beginning? Because in the next episode, he's coming back. And this time, he remembers everything. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and don't miss the rebirth of the man they tried to erase. The story's only just beginning.